Earlier today, we spoke about adapting brands to your local environment. We're going to continue that conversation now with the company which we hope will sponsor drinks this evening. Maybe they already are, Diageo. The company obviously has a broad reach and a broad portfolio of brands. And clearly, given the cultural and ethnic and religious mix in this part of the world, they obviously need a very different strategy for tackling each market. So how do you make a global brand local? The Managing Director for Southeast Asia is with us now. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Foo Siew-Ting.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I think he introduced me as the Managing Director. Unfortunately, I'm not. I'm just the Marketing Director. Good afternoon. What I'm going to share with you today is just some of my own experiences. By no means they are rules, but being a marketer of 19 years and worked with big multinationals and spending my last 9 years with Diageo, especially in emerging markets like China and Southeast Asia, I just want to share some of the stuff that we've done across the region. To start off first, as you know, I'll just talk a little bit about Diageo, because for some of you, you might not know who Diageo is. Well, we are the makers of great, fantastic brands, from Johnnie Walker, Bailey, Smirnoff, to name a few, the great, wonderful drinks. We are in the business which is really purpose-led. We talked about celebrating life every day, everywhere. And all of this really started with the giants. The giants and the entrepreneurs, we have great vision. To name a few, at the left-hand side, right at the end, I'm sure every one of you is familiar with the drink Johnnie Walker. No, it seems that I think I need to do a bit more work. Not having done enough job. But Alexander Walker, he started the brand, Johnnie Walker, 200 years ago in a little town called Cardew in Scotland. He started as a tea blender, and using the techniques of blending, he started creating the #1 Scotch whiskey, Johnnie Walker, and exported it out of the world. And hence, we have the great #1 Scotch whiskey, which is available in Asia Pac and across the globe. Of course, we have Guinness, another of our leading beer, which is started by James Arthur Guinness himself about 200 years ago, whereby he took the belief and he actually bought a lease of 9,000 years and actually started the St. James Brewery and made Guinness. Okay? And yet, we are the masters of our own destiny. And in Diageo, marketing and innovation are what we call key engines of growth. And we have learned a lot through launching brands which requires understanding of the consumer insights with great vision, creativity, and courage. Okay. What I'm going to share with you are 5 simple rules or simple beliefs of how we actually take the global brands into Asia Pac. First, it started with a deep understanding of consumers and the local insight in depth. I have spent my last 4 years in China. Most recently came back to Southeast Asia. So as we know, China is an amazing market, but it's not without its challenges. We are talking about 3 generations of different consumers, which are influenced very differently. So starting with the 70s generation, which is really educated by Mao Zedong or Chairman Mao, but yet exposed to the whole innovation around Bill Gates. So the way they look at brands are quite different. The way they look at progress are very status-driven. Having said that, we're also bombarded with the new generation of consumers, which are the 80s and the 90s generation, as we called it, which are from the single-child policy. And at one point in time, there are 5 adults really looking at them. So you're talking about entire new generation of consumers who consume brands, in a very digital and savvy ways. Okay? And then most recently, in the context of Southeast Asia, and you'll start wondering, how do you market to Southeast Asia, which, as you've seen out there, which is a very diverse group of consumers, starting with the Gen Y consumers and then the emerging middle class. So having brands with a very strong point of view and authenticity and being able to have conversation with them is really critical in Generation Y. But at the same time, for the emerging middle class consumers, how do you create aspiration through your pricing and accessibility hence become critical? In Diageo, we actually have this term, what we call as next generation marketing, which was really inspired by the book, How Do You Grow Brands by Byron Sharp, which basically means that brands are a little bit like leaky buckets. As marketers, we tend to think that when you recruit a consumer into the brand, and the consumer will stay really loyal with the brand, but actually it's not so. I mean, the brands are like leaky buckets. We need to constantly recruit and re-recruit and build the category repertoire. So we talked about physical availability and mental availability to constantly bring brand salience and actually recruit consumers. And these are key principles that we used in our daily life in Diageo. The second point is, how do we take big global platform ideas and actually make it local relevant? I'd like to talk about a brand that I have worked on for the last 5 years, a brand that I'm really passionate about, which is the brand Johnnie Walker. It is a brand that's built on a really insightful universal truth, which is about people want to progress in life. And it has a universal thought, which is about, which is keep walking, okay? And 3 years ago in China, we started a campaign called Words of Journey. Some of you might have heard it. It's well publicized in the digital world. And the insight then was that the 80s and the 90s generation actually want to participate to shape the progress of the nation. So we recruited a well-known director known as Diageo Asia, and actually asked him to make 12 films of the pioneers of China. And in the films, we asked them to actually advise the new generation what are the words that will inspire them to progress, okay? And these are the 12 pioneers that we work with. Some of them are pretty well known. Some of them are emerging pioneers in the world. For example, we have Pan Shiyi, which is the chairman of the Soho Property Guru. We also have well-known Chinese dancers, Huang Doudou, and we actually made three-minute films that was digitally publicized in blogs and in Youku, or the YouTube equivalent. What I'm going to share with you is a 30-second film of one of the films to demonstrate how Keep Walking was actually brought alive.
我第一次离开家的时候，我爸爸就说：“孩子，要出门了，记住2句话：没事别惹事，有事别怕事。”特别有力量的2句话。真正遇到事情的时候，要勇敢，不要怕事。
永远向前，尊尼获加苏格兰威士忌。
The films are still available in the YouTube itself. So this is a 30-second, it's a cut short version, so it doesn't really tell the story. But as a result of this campaign, we generated 90 million viewers participation who have to watch the films. We actually won 13, industry awards, and as a result of that, our brand equity and brand love really shifted enormously and became the most talked about alcohol spirit during that time. And also, we started the video film format, which is pretty rave the past 3 years. Another campaign that I like to talk about is actually how Keep Walking manifests itself in Thailand. As we all know, a lot of Thais actually are very, very familiar with Johnnie Walker brand and actually sees it as the standard of iconic brand in the international spirits world. This is a campaign that has been done 10 years ago, which was how Johnnie Walker get pioneered then. The insight then was that for the Thais, paying back to society was a key form, a way how they like to demonstrate progress. And we made this film called The Teacher. Let me share with you this film.
สวัสดีครับครู
พร้อมใช่ไหม
ใช่ครับ
ไปไงมาไงล่ะ
ไปด้วยกันไหมครับเดี๋ยวผมไปส่ง ครูเป็นไงบ้างครับ
อะไรมันก็ดูเปลี่ยนแปลงไป อย่างเช่นเกาะเนี่ยทีนี้ก็เปลี่ยนแปลงไปเป็นของในทุนหมดแล้ว โรงเรียนเธอก็จะไม่เหลือแล้ว
ผมมีของขวัญจะให้ครูครับ
อะไรล่ะ ขอบใจนะ บริษัทนี้แหละที่มากว้านซื้อที่ดินบริเวณนี้
ครูครับ เป็นบริษัทของผมเองครับ
ช่วยจอดรถบริเวณครูลงหน่อย สงสัยครูคงไม่ใช่ครูที่ดีของเธอ
ครูครับ ครูเป็นครูที่ดีที่สุดของผม
Okay, so this film actually established Keep Walking, and as a result of that, constantly, this film always get remembered, get mentioned in a lot of research that we work. Okay, the third point I'd like to talk about, which is in terms of taking global brands local here, is about the connection into culture with locally relevant innovation. Okay. I'm a Singaporean Chinese, so I don't profess to know everything about China. But having spent the last 4 years in China, we believe that connecting in culture is quite critical. An example that I'm really proud of is actually the establishment of this new concept called the Johnnie Walker House, which was really, and you will really be thinking that 3 years ago when we put up this proposal at the board, and the board will be thinking, are you crazy? We are in the business of selling booze. We actually sell the booze in the bar. So you're talking about creating a Johnnie Walker House that's standalone. What do you want to do? And the context was that, China, as we know, is actually the world's largest luxury world. And 50% of the imported spirit is super deluxe. And our presence then, Johnnie Walker, we only have 1% of share. So we dig further and further. We start wondering, the Chinese actually wanted to really know about whiskey, so that they can show off their knowledge about whiskey to their friends. So it all started with this concept. Remembering my early days when I get trained about Scotch whiskey, I was sent to Scotland, and I actually sat in front of the desk with the master blender. And the master blender started talking to me in a very intimate conversation and teach me about, blending. So inspired by this, we created a space called the Johnnie Walker House. And I'll take you through a video that demonstrates this, but it is actually a rich, immersive experience that bring alive the whiskey culture, and also a start of lots and lots of innovation. And this film will take you through the journey of how Johnnie Walker House is like. Okay, so this concept was started 2 years ago. It started with one house in Shanghai, and the second year we actually had another house in Beijing, and then followed by last year we had the house in Chengdu. And this concept started from Asia Pac, and it started inspiring a lot of establishment across the world. And obviously 3 years ago we didn't expect this whole concept to really come alive. The other aha that we learned was truly started by this. This is actually a painting that talks about the striding man, how he traveled from Scotland into Shanghai. And we used a local China form of art called the porcelain painting to create this inspiration. Being spearheaded by this inspiration and really digging under the skin of that the Chinese want rarity and limited editions, we start creating a whole pipeline of limited editions that you can see, starting from epic dates, key innovations, and then followed by master blenders, limited edition, and also even for the VIP consumers, they get to customize their own cask of limited editions that they can buy for themselves. So we start being able to create value from innovation that starts from £3,000 and all the way up to £100,000 itself. So the connection into local Chinese cultural relevancy start creating value through the innovation that we've done for the Johnnie Walker House. At the same time, we brought in relevancy back into the festive mode. So this is a recent innovation which is done for the Year of the Ram, which is inspired by the Chinese idiom itself. Okay. So the last two simple thing that we use, I think the fourth one is really about using local influencers to really drive advocates. And in Asia, we know that being recognized within the group and actually having assurance is quite important, and hence influencers play a critical role in order to help them make the choice. A recent example, we launched a single grain whiskey with one of the world's most popular men, which is David Beckham, and we created the proposition called Hit Club, a single grain whiskey. We didn't stop at that. In the whole activation of that, we also utilized local influencers, the like of Tracy Phillips in Singapore, Jimmy Choo in Malaysia, to help drive advocacy and conversation and earn rich in a virtual circle. Another example, as you could see, which is the example in China, which is utilizing world-famous people and also local celebrities from Maggie Q, Jensen Button, and some of the Chinese celebrities to create conversation about whiskey and food. Okay. Last but not least, the role of digital is really, really critical. In Southeast Asia, a lot of our markets are dark. What do we mean by dark? So for people who are not familiar with this term, is that I'm not allowed to advertise with logo. In the outlets, I'm not allowed to have brand logo. So what do? So the role of digital hence becomes quite a critical task for us to engage on having authentic conversations with consumers. So going back to the previous example of the Yulu campaign in China, we utilize one of China's most influential blogger, which is Han Han, which is he has 300 million followers, and we used him to kickstart conversation itself. And the result was an integrated participation platform, which was highly talked about in the blog and at the same time on the online film. Okay, 90 million consumers actually watch the films. About 30 million actually participate in having conversation with us and actually making us the most talked about brand during that period of launch. I talked about Southeast Asian markets being markets that are turning dark. And in Thailand, we have a nightlife portal called the Hit Kimdon, whereby consumers can really engage in authentic conversations about the nightlife, about our drinks itself. So this proposition was launched about 2.5 years ago, and as now we have about 400,000 consumers in the database, and about 10% of them get driven into outlets as a result of the conversations that we have. So in the event, if Thailand goes really dark, we can rely on this database to help us market our brands. Okay, so last but not least, these are simple, little black books, but I think I'm a firm believer of boldness and creativity, and to connect with brands, the culture has to really start within, okay? The cross-collaboration across the organization, and most importantly, the team and the people that I actually is very fortunate to work with. So just some pictures of my team across in Southeast Asia, because I firmly believe that with bold and creativity, culture needs to start from within and collaboration needs to start within. So I hope you guys enjoy this little experience that I've shared. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siew-Ting from Diageo, and apologies for the premature promotion.